He just wanted a piece of bread. But the world felt he didn't deserve even that. "Get out of here. We don't sell to beggars." The phrase that no one should hear was said very loudly, and everyone fell silent. But what the baker didn't know is that the simply dressed man sitting in a corner, he owned everything, and his past hid an equal amount of pain. And at that moment, fate decided to avenge the injustice. He's going to change the boy's life and the meaning of bread forever. What happens next will restore your faith in humanity.
The sun rose lazily over the city, tinging the facades of the elegant shops with gold. Among them, the bakery Delicia and Tradición opened its doors, releasing the warm aroma of freshly baked bread that filled the street. On the other side of the window, a boy in torn clothes and bare feet watched silently. His eyes shone like the golden loaves he had never tasted. 10-year-old Mateos hugged his stomach, trying to stave off hunger with the cold morning air. With each breath, the sweet, buttery smell seemed to mock his misery. People hurried past, averting their gaze as if his presence were invisible. He was already used to it. The world for him was a closed shop window. Inside the bakery, the atmosphere was another universe. Well-dressed customers smiled, waiters moved quickly, and the clinking of cups created a soft melody. The contrast with the cold sidewalk was almost cruel. Mateos pressed his face against the glass, letting the vapor of his breath blur the reflection of his own poverty. For a moment, he dreamed. He imagined himself inside, sitting at one of the tables, holding a warm loaf of bread in his hands. The dream was short-lived. Soon, his stomach growled loudly, reminding him of reality. He took a deep breath and stepped back, embarrassed, as if the glass could judge him. The baker, Mr. Roberto, watched him with irritation. He was a robust man with a stern expression, accustomed to judging people by the shoes they wore. He frowned, wiped his hands on his apron, and marched to the door. "Hey, kid, you're gonna smudge the window with that face pressed against it," he shouted loud enough for everyone to hear. Some customers chuckled quietly, others pretended not to hear. Matthew was startled and stepped back, apologizing softly. The baker, however, couldn't contain himself. "This isn't a place for you, you hear? We don't sell to beggars." The phrase cut through the air like a blade. The boy lowered his head and slowly walked away. Inside the bakery, a woman in uniform, Clara, was visibly embarrassed. She tried to argue, but the baker silenced her with an authoritative look. "Get to work, girl. If you want to help a beggar, do it on the street, not here." Clara bit her lip, holding back tears of indignation. An awkward silence settled in. Only the clinking of a cup on its saucer broke the awkward sound. Sitting in a corner, a simple man, wearing a cap and modest clothes, observed everything. He didn't take his eyes off the boy and the baker. His calm gaze concealed something deep, almost painful. The man was Lucas. And as the boy disappeared around the corner, something inside him shattered. The past began to awaken, with memories he had tried to forget for decades. And deep in his chest, a question arose. How many times had he himself been that boy?
If this scene affected you, imagine what's still to come.
Stories like this remind us of the value of empathy and how much a single gesture can change everything. So before continuing, subscribe to the channel here and turn on notifications, because every story we tell can be the warm bread that warms another heart. The atmosphere inside the bakery remained tense. Clara served the customers in silence, and the baker pretended not to notice the uncomfortable stares that lingered on him. "People like that should stay far away from here," he muttered while arranging the bread on the shelf. Lucas heard every word. The memory came back vivid and painful. He saw himself, at 11 years old, barefoot and hungry, being thrown out of an identical bakery. The same phrase, the same tone of contempt.
only back then, no one defended him. Time passed, life changed, but the wound never fully healed. Lucas, now a billionaire owner of the Delicia and Tradición franchise, used to visit his stores in disguise to observe the service without being recognized. He liked to see how people treated those around them. But that scene, that phrase, "We don't sell to beggars," affected him in a different way. The bread he chewed tasted bitter. He stared at the gleaming shop window and felt a lump in his throat. Success, suddenly, seemed empty. He looked around. No one had moved to help the boy. Everyone was trapped in their own bubbles of comfort. Indifference was the worst form of cruelty. Getting up, Lucas walked to the counter. The baker greeted him with the same fake smile he had used minutes before. "Yes, sir? Would you like anything else?" Lucas replied calmly, "Just the bill." His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed a suppressed fire. While the cashier added up the amounts, Lucas noticed Clara trying to hide her discomfort. He approached her and said softly, "You tried to do the right thing. Thank you." She looked at him surprised and simply nodded. Deep down, she felt that this man was not an ordinary customer. As he left, Lucas took a deep breath. The cold wind stung his face, but the memory of his childhood hurt more. He looked both ways down the street, and in the distance saw Mateus walking slowly, his shoulders slumped and his gaze vacant. Without thinking twice, he began to follow him.
Each step was a mixture of anger and empathy. Anger at a world that still treated poverty as filth, and empathy for that boy who seemed to carry the weight of an entire life on his shoulders. Lucas knew he couldn't change the past, but he could change the present.
When he turned the corner, he saw the boy sitting on the ground, sharing a piece of stale bread with a skinny dog. And it was there, faced with that simple and devastating scene, that Lucas made the decision that would change everyone's destiny, including his own. Lucas approached slowly, watching the boy share the bread with the dog. The scene paralyzed him. It was as if time had gone back. He remembered the day he also sat on a sidewalk, holding a stale loaf of bread, while a stranger looked at him with disdain. The difference was that, on that day, no one stopped. "May I sit here?" Lucas asked softly. Mateus hesitated, suspicious. No one ever asked his permission for anything. "You may, but I have nothing to share, young man," the boy replied, with a sincerity that disarmed anyone. Lucas smiled. "I didn't come looking for bread. I came to offer a listening ear." The boy looked at him, curious, but still alert. "You're not from around here, are you? It's obvious." Lucas chuckled softly. "I am, and I'm not. I've been to many places, but none as cold as a look of contempt." Mateus didn't understand immediately, but he sensed something different about that man. The dog, lying between them, rested its head on the boy's lap, as if it too sensed the peace in that unlikely encounter. The wind carried the distant scent of the bakery, a cruel reminder of where it had all begun. Lucas stared at it and thought, "Today, history will not repeat itself." "How did you end up here, Mateus?" he asked. The boy explained, between pauses and sighs, that his mother had died 2 years ago, and since then he had been living by collecting cans and doing odd jobs. "Bread is what I miss the most, young man. When you're hungry, even the smell of it seems like food." The words hit Lucas hard. He closed his eyes for a moment, and the memories came rushing back. The orphanage, the nights without dinner, the humiliation from the rich who called him a beggar. All of that had transformed him, but it had also hardened him. Now he saw in the boy a chance to heal what time had not healed. "Do you trust me?" he asked. Mateus laughed humorlessly. "I trust anyone who feeds the dog. I'm still learning the rest." Lucas extended his hand, and the boy shook it with an innocence that only pain can preserve. "Let's go back there." "Where?" "To the bakery." I think it's time to teach a lesson about what it means to be hungry and to have dignity." The boy's eyes widened in surprise. "But they'll kick me out again." Lucas replied with a half smile, "Not today." As they walked side by side, Lucas felt the weight of the past transform into purpose. The morning chill seemed less cruel. Each step toward the bakery was a reckoning, not just with the baker, but with destiny itself.
As they reached the corner, the golden sign of Delicia and Tradición gleamed in the sun. For Mateos, it was just an unreachable store. For Lucas, it would be the stage for redemption. When Lucas and Mateos walked through the bakery door, the murmur ceased. The baker, seeing the boy again, snorted loudly. "You again? I already told you this isn't the place for that kind of people." Lucas calmly placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. "He's with me." Silence spread like a wave. Some customers whispered. Clara, the cashier, stopped what she was doing and looked surprised. Lucas walked to the counter and said firmly, "How much does this bakery cost?" The baker let out a mocking laugh. "What did you say?" "I asked how much it costs." Clara dropped a tray. The baker's laughter gradually faded, turning nervous. "Are you joking?" Lucas slowly pulled a document from his pocket. "No, I'm just buying what's already mine." The man frowned, confused. Lucas placed the paper on the counter. The logo at the top said, "Delicious and Tradition, owned by Lucas Andrade." The murmurs began. The baker paled. You're the owner?" Lucas nodded. "I am. And I've just decided that this shop is going to change completely." Mathea looked at him, not quite understanding what was happening. "But are you rich?" he asked, almost whispering. Luke smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. "Rich in money, yes, but still learning to be rich in humanity." He turned to the baker and spoke with a cutting serenity. "From today onwards, no one will be turned away here for being hungry. This will be the first daily bread, a place where anyone who is hungry can exchange a simple task for a hot meal." Clara began to cry quietly, and some customers applauded, moved. The baker, trembling, tried to justify himself. "I was just following the rules, sir." Lucas interrupted him. "Rules that exclude people aren't worth the bread they sell." Mateos held Lucas's arm shyly. "Does this mean I can eat?" Luke smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. "It means no one else will have to ask." The boy smiled for the first time in a long time, a shy smile, but full of life. And in that instant, as the aroma of warm bread filled the air and the murmur of applause grew, Lucas felt something different. It wasn't just justice, it was healing. The boy looked at the glass where he had previously seen hunger reflected, and for the first time saw hope. After the shock and confusion, the bakery gradually emptied. The customers, still stunned, left commenting on the billionaire in disguise who bought the place in front of everyone. Clara, still emotional, offered a fresh loaf of bread to Mateos, who held it with trembling hands. "It's yours, little one," she said with a smile.
Lucas watched everything in silence. That simple, warm bread seemed to symbolize what he had always wanted to change. When he saw the boy take his first bite, he felt a lump in his throat. It wasn't ordinary compassion. It was a mirror of the past, reflecting his own hunger from when he was a child. "Where do you live, Mateus?" Lucas asked. The boy shrugged, chewing slowly. "Wherever the cold allows. Sometimes in a shed, sometimes on the street. But I have my dog, Bolinha. He's never left me." Lucas nodded, moved. "So from today on, none of you will sleep on the street anymore." Matthew's eyes widened in disbelief. "But why would you do that?" Lucas replied, because someone once did it for me, and because I know what it's like to look at a loaf of bread and feel that the world has denied you even that." The sincerity in his voice made Clara cry again. Meanwhile, the baker remained motionless, unable to look anyone in the eye. His arrogance had turned to shame. He began to silently wipe the counter, trying to disappear among the breadcrumbs. Lucas watched him, but said nothing. It wasn't time to punish him yet. It was time to teach. When the movement ended, Lucas called all the employees together. "From today onwards, this bakery will be renovated. Whoever wants to stay and learn a new way of serving is welcome. Whoever doesn't want to will be respected. But here, no one will leave hungry anymore." Clara was the first to raise her hand. "I'll stay." Others hesitated, but gradually arms began to raise. Even the baker raised his, embarrassed, murmuring, "I want to stay too, if you'll allow it." Lucas stared at him for a long time before answering. "We'll see, Roberto. We'll see." Outside, the sun was beginning to set, tinging the golden glass of the bakery. Lucas came out, accompanied by Mateus and the dog, who wagged his tail, oblivious to the grandeur of the moment. The boy looked at the sign and asked, "Are you really going to change the name?" Lucas smiled. "Yes, it's going to be called Daily Bread." Mateus liked the name. "It sounds like a miracle." Lucas looked up at the sky and replied, "Maybe it is. But miracles begin when someone decides not to look at the other as a stranger." And so, hand in hand, the two left the bakery, a boy and a billionaire, bound by the same hunger and the same destiny.
The following morning, the city awoke to the news splashed across the newspapers. Billionaire buys bakery after witnessing act of discrimination. The photos showed Lucas standing next to Mateus with the sign Delicia y Tradición, meaning delicious and tradition, in the background. The case went viral on social media, dividing opinions. Some called Lucas a hero, others an opportunist. "It's social marketing," some said. But Lucas didn't care. He knew that for the first time in a long time, he was doing something with his heart, not with a calculator. Still, he felt the weight of a difficult choice ahead. In his office, surrounded by tense executives, he listened to the partner's criticism. "Lucas, this is a strategic mistake. This image of charity will tarnish the brand." He took a deep breath before replying. "If feeding the hungry tarnishes the brand, then the brand is worthless." The silence that followed was the most sincere answer he could receive. Meanwhile, Mateus was temporarily housed in a small room at the back of the bakery. It had a bed, a blanket, and the smell of the oven in the morning. To him, it was a castle. He spent hours petting the dog and staring at the ceiling, unable to believe that for one night he didn't have to sleep in fear. That same night, Lucas returned to the place. He found the boy sitting on the stairs, looking at the sky. "Can't you sleep?" he asked. "I'm afraid to wake up and find out it was a dream," Mateus replied. Lucas sat down beside him. "You know what my mother used to say when I thought like that? That dreams only end when we stop believing." The boy smiled shyly, resting his head on the man's shoulder. The simple gesture melted away any trace of hardness in Lucas. "Tomorrow, we really begin. We're going to transform this place into a symbol. No empty stomachs, no rejected glances." Mateus looked curious. "And the angry man? The baker?" "Yes." Lucas smiled. "He'll learn what it truly means to serve. It might take time, but he will." The boy nodded.
and the silence of the night enveloped them with tenderness and promise. As the lights in the bakery went out, Lucas realized he wasn't just the owner of a business. He was the guardian of an idea. A simple but powerful idea. No one should be turned away because they are hungry. And for the first time since becoming a billionaire, he slept peacefully. Not because of the money he had, but because someone could finally eat bread. 2 days later, the Delicia y Tradición sign was removed. In its place, workers began installing the new sign, Daily Bread. Curious onlookers crowded the sidewalks, commenting and taking photos. Clara directed the workers, while Lucas observed everything with his arms crossed, with a mixture of serenity and purpose. Inside the building, the smell of fresh paint mingled with the scent of yeast. Lucas walked among the employees, explaining the new concept of the place. Here, anyone can exchange a simple task, sweeping, cleaning, organizing, for a complete meal. And if they can't work, they'll still eat.
The words provoked whispers. Some employees exchanged skeptical glances. "This will turn into a shelter for beggars," murmured an older baker. Lucas heard but didn't respond. He knew that change frightened those trapped in the routine of indifference. He wanted to transform mindsets, not just a business. Mr. Roberto, the former baker, remained on the sidelines, helping to organize the new batches. Since the day of the incident, he had kept silent, avoiding Lucas and Clara's gaze. The shame still weighed heavily on him, but something inside him was beginning to change. That morning, Matthew appeared wearing a new apron, a size too big for him, but which he wore with pride. "It looks good on you, doesn't it?" Clara said, laughing. The boy blushed and replied, "Now I work here too." The sparkle in his eyes lit up the room more than any renovation. Lucas watched the scene from afar. Matthew's simplicity reminded him why he was doing all this. "This place is no longer about selling bread," he thought. "It's about restoring dignity." And every word of that promise strengthened him. In the afternoon, journalists began to approach. They wanted statements, headlines, stories. Lucas didn't shy away. He stood before the cameras and, in a firm voice, said, "Today, the first daily bread is born, a space where the bread will be the same for those who pay and for those who cannot." The speech moved the crowd. Some people cried, others applauded. Matthew, hidden behind the shop window, watched the scene with a shy smile. For the first time, he felt part of something big. As the applause echoed, Lucas felt a lump in his throat. It wasn't vanity, but a kind of gratitude that hurt because it was so genuine. The boy who had once been hungry was now feeding others, even if only symbolically. And when the sun set, reflecting on the new golden sign, Lucas realized the bakery wasn't just his. It belonged to the people. It belonged to the heart. The success of the opening spread quickly. Within days, Pão de Cada Dia, Daily Bread, became national news. TV programs, influencers, and newspapers told the story of the rich man who bought a bakery to prevent a boy from going hungry. But not everyone applauded. "This is pure emotional marketing," said one presenter. "No rich person does charity without self-interest." Lucas watched the criticism on television and sighed. He knew that public kindness was always accompanied by skepticism. Still, he didn't regret it. "Let them talk," he murmured to Clara. "The truth doesn't need defending, only continuity." Inside the bakery, there was constant activity. Poor families arrived looking for bread, elderly people asked for coffee, and unemployed workers offered help. In a few days, the place became a meeting point for those who had and those who had nothing. The smell of fresh bread mingled with laughter and gratitude.
Mateus, now an official assistant, meticulously arranged the tables. Bolina the dog slept near the counter, like a mascot for the project. "I've never seen so many people happy to share," said the boy, while serving coffee to a lady. Clara replied with a smile. Hunger diminishes when love increases. But the calm wouldn't last. In the middle of the afternoon, Mr. Roberto asked to speak with Lucas. "Sir, I need to tell you something." He took a deep breath. "I grew up poor too, but one day I swore I would never go hungry again, and I ended up becoming what I hated most." Lucas observed him silently, with empathy. "We all make mistakes, Roberto, but what defines us is what we do after the mistake." The man lowered his head, moved. "Can I stay here? I want to learn how to make the right bread, not the expensive bread." Lucas smiled. "You can, and you will be my master of bread and of humility." The conversation spread among the employees. Many were moved. The atmosphere, previously tense, became light and human. For the first time, everyone seemed to understand the true meaning of the work there, to serve, not just to sell. At the end of the day, Matthew approached Luke. "May I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you do all this just for me?" Luke smiled, kneeling down. "Because before you, someone else also did this for me, and I learned that bread that is shared never runs out." That night was special. The bakery stayed open late, and the line for the charity bread seemed endless. But among all the happy faces, one stood out, that of a boy who had finally found his place in the world. With the sudden success of daily bread, the bakery became the talk of the neighborhood, and also a source of tension among the employees. Many were happy with the new purpose, but others began to grumble. "We're turning into a charity, not a business," complained one employee. "This won't last," added another. Lucas noticed the distrustful glances. The once light-hearted atmosphere was beginning to break down. Clara tried to cheer up her colleagues, reminding them how the bakery had become a symbol of kindness. But the voices of resistance grew louder, led by an ambitious employee who saw the changes as a threat to profits. One day, while Lucas was guiding a group of new volunteers, he overheard arguments at the counter. "These people come here, eat, and leave without paying. And what about us? Are we going to work for free now?" shouted the outraged employee. Lucas approached calmly. "Do you think money alone pays for the work?" he asked.
The man hesitated. Lucas continued. "So you believe that someone who cleans the floor of life but has no money doesn't deserve to eat?" The question echoed in the bakery. The employee was speechless and fell silent. But the tension didn't disappear. The fear of the unknown still lingered in hearts accustomed to indifference. That night, Lucas gathered all the employees together. Bread isn't just flour and yeast, it's about sharing. And sharing never impoverishes anyone. If this place is only about profit, I'd rather close it down. But if it's about humanity, it will live forever. The silence that followed was profound. Clara wiped away a tear and applauded alone. Soon the others began to applaud as well, until the sound filled the room like a prayer. The baker, Roberto, lowered his head, ashamed of the times he had thought the same way. Matthew, who had been observing everything from a corner, approached Luke and whispered, "They'll understand, young man. I understood." The boy's smile was like a ray of light amidst the doubt. Luke smiled back and replied, "Then it was worth it." In the following days, something changed. The criticism lessened. The employees themselves began to come up with ideas to help more people, a job board, baking classes, even a clothing drive. The bread was now just the beginning of something bigger. But outside, a new resistance was emerging. Neighboring business owners began to complain. "These lines on the sidewalk are driving away our wealthy customers," they said. Lucas knew the real challenge was only just beginning. The sun rose brightly on the morning of the official reopening. Banners with the phrase, "No one who is hungry will be turned away here," decorated the facade. Journalists, curious onlookers, and volunteers formed a crowd. Lucas wore the same apron that Matthew wore, a symbolic way of saying that there, everyone was equal. Inside the bakery, the activity was intense. Bread came out of the oven in successive batches, the smells spread through the streets, and the sound of conversations mingled with the clinking of cups. In the center, a sign announced the rules of daily bread. 1. Those who have, pay. 2. Those who don't have, help. 3. Everyone eats. Clara ran back and forth, smiling. "I've never seen so many people happy to be waiting in line." Lucas watched proudly. The project was taking shape before his eyes. It was no longer just an idea, it was a living movement. With each meal served, a new story was being written. Mateus took on the role of helping those who arrived. He cleaned tables, handed out bread, and smiled at each person with the joy of someone who knew the pain of hunger. Bolinia, the dog, now with a scarf around his neck, had become the bakery's official mascot. Late in the morning, an elderly gentleman entered, leaning on a cane. "Young man, they said you don't have to pay to eat here." Mateus led him to a table, brought him coffee and a warm loaf of bread. The old man wept. "No one has treated me like this in years." Lucas watched from afar, his eyes brimming with tears.
In the afternoon, Lucas called a small meeting. "Today we're starting something that goes beyond bread. We're going to open more locations, train homeless people, and teach them the craft of baking. I want to transform hunger into a future." Clara and Roberto exchanged emotional glances. The former baker, once a symbol of arrogance, was now teaching techniques to the new apprentices. "The secret isn't in the flour, it's in the heart of the one who needs the bread," he would say. His simple and sincere words brought smiles to everyone's faces. At the end of the day, Lucas went out into the street and saw something that made him stop. A group of volunteers were spontaneously serving soup and bread in front of the bakery, wearing t-shirts with the phrase, "Bread that is shared never runs out." He took a deep breath, overcome with emotion. The dream was no longer just his. It had become everyone's. That was it, he thought. That was it all along. The success of Daily Bread grew faster than Lucas could have imagined. Within days, news reports, videos, and posts flooded the internet. The billionaire who had bought a bakery to feed the poor had become a symbol of generosity. But the tide of applause soon began to turn. Some sensationalist newspapers began to doubt Lucas's sincerity. Charity or self-promotion? The headlines asked. On television programs, commentators called him an image strategist and a gourmet populist. He watched in silence, without anger, only with a deep weariness in his eyes. Behind the scenes, his network partners began to pressure him. "This is hurting the brand. We're losing high-end clients." One of them even threatened to withdraw their investment. Lucas calmly replied, "If the price of dignity is losing money, I'll pay it." But inside, the weight was starting to accumulate. Clara noticed the change. Lucas was quieter, more introspective. He would spend hours observing the activity in the bakery without saying a word. Sometimes he would hold his coffee cup for minutes without drinking. The flame of faith still burned, but the wind of criticism threatened to extinguish it. Outside, the situation was also getting complicated. Neighbors complained about the lines, the presence of homeless people, and the bad smell that, according to them, scared away upscale customers. A petition began circulating asking for the unit to be closed. He read it and sighed. "Fear wears a suit and tie," he said softly. One night, a group of young people vandalized the bakery's facade, writing in red paint, "Hunger doesn't pay the rent." The attack shocked the team. Matthew cried when he saw the scratched sign. "Why do they hate what helps?" he asked, his voice trembling. Lucas hugged him. "Because not everyone knows how to recognize what light is until they stumble in their own shadow."
Despite the pain, the team rallied together. Roberto and Clara organized cleanup efforts. Volunteers repainted the walls, and dozens of people showed up with donations. The community, previously skeptical, began to publicly support the project. Still, Lucas felt a heavy heart at. "Perhaps I was too naive," he confessed to Clara. "I wanted to change the world with bread, but I forgot that the world doesn't always want to be changed." Clara replied tenderly, "But the boy did, and sometimes changing a child's world is already changing enough." Her words ignited a spark of hope. But that night, alone in his apartment, Lucas looked out the window and watched the city lights slowly fading. "Is it still worth it?" he murmured. For the first time, doubt weighed more than his hunger for justice. The clock was almost midnight. Lucas was alone in the bakery office, surrounded by piles of reports, letters, and thank-you notes. The dim light of the lamp cast shadows dancing on the walls. The silence was absolute, broken only by the distant sound of rain pattering against the window pane. He picked up an old photograph of his mother. She was smiling, holding a loaf of bread wrapped in cloth. On the back of the photo, a handwritten phrase, "Never deny bread to someone who is hungry, my son." He closed his eyes, and a tear rolled down his cheek. "I tried, Mom, but the world still prefers to point fingers rather than share." That night, Lucas allowed himself to falter. He thought about ending the project, selling the bakery, and returning to his comfortable routine. The weight of the criticism and the fear of failure eroded his resolve. "Maybe I went too far," he murmured, staring at his tired reflection in the mirror. But something made him stop. It was a soft sound coming from the back door, small, hurried steps. When he opened it, he saw Mateus with a blanket over his shoulders, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "I couldn't sleep. I brought some for us." Lucas laughed, moved. "You really are impossible, kid." They sat side by side on the cold floor, drinking coffee in silence. "You're sad, aren't you?" the boy asked. Lucas nodded. "I am. Sometimes it feels like nothing I do is ever enough." Matthew looked at him and said with the simple wisdom of someone who had lived too long, "But that's true. You know why? Because nobody went to bed hungry here tonight. And if we can give bread to one more person tomorrow, it will have been worth it." The boy's words were like a punch of hope to Lucas's weary heart. He smiled and ruffled the boy's hair. "You should be my advisor, not my assistant." Mateus laughed. "I can be both."
The next morning, Lucas returned to the bakery with a different demeanor. The sun seemed warmer, the air lighter. He ordered them to bake twice as many loaves of bread. "Today we will feed the soul of this city," he said. The employees exchanged glances. They knew that the man who led that place was back. While the ovens were being relit, he wrote a sentence and pasted it on the wall. "Bread that is shared multiplies faith." It was the reminder I needed to move forward. And at that moment, Lucas realized the true miracle was not in the bread. It was in those who believed in it. The morning sun illuminated the daily bread sign, now restored and gleaming.
After weeks of struggle, criticism, and sleepless nights, Lucas finally felt the wind of hope blowing back. The bakery was packed, not just with customers, but with purpose. The smell of fresh bread mingled with the laughter of people who, once invisible, now had a voice and a name. Social media, previously filled with accusations, began to change its tone. Stories of people who had found employment, shelter, and dignity through the project went viral. The nation was captivated by the idea of transforming hunger into opportunity. Daily bread ceased to be a curiosity and became a movement. Mateos was now a symbol. News reports told how the boy who had been humiliated in front of the bakery had become a small local hero. He smiled shyly before the cameras, always saying, "I only wanted a loaf of bread, but I gained a family." The public wept. Lucas, silently, smiled with pride. As his success grew, Baker Roberto continued his path to redemption. He arrived earlier than everyone else, taught the apprentices, and repeated the same lesson. Bread only rises if the yeast is good and the heart is good too. The team respected him. His transformation inspired others to believe in new beginnings. One afternoon, an elderly woman entered the bakery with a basket of stale bread. "My son," she said to Lucas, "I live in a community and I started making bread to donate as well. I learned by watching you." He became emotional, squeezing her hands. "You understood the spirit. The bread that we share never runs out." That same day, the phone rang. It was a businessman from another city, asking for help to open a solidarity branch. "We want to take this idea to the whole country." Lucas looked out the window and replied, "It's not my idea. It comes from the hunger that unites us and from the kindness that insists on being reborn." As new units were planned, volunteers from all over Brazil offered their services. Ordinary people, retired bakers, unemployed youth, single mothers, everyone wanted to be part of the network. The name Pão de Cada Dia, daily bread, spread like the aroma of an oven that never cools down.
Matthews, now the chief assistant, wore a name tag with his own name on it. "Look, young man," he said, smiling, "my name is on the same name as yours." Lucas knelt down and replied, "That's because we're the same. What changes is only the story that each one brings." And that night, when the bakery lights went out, Lucas looked around and realized something magical. It wasn't just a business anymore. It was a current of compassion, a seed he had planted in people's hearts. The first anniversary of Pão de Cada Dia, daily bread, was celebrated with emotion. The line stretched along the sidewalk, but no one complained. Soft music, decorated tables, and an irresistible aroma filled the air. Clara organized everything, while Matthews ran from one side to another distributing bread and smiles. Lucas arrived discreetly, wearing the same old cap he'd had since it all began. No one recognized him immediately. He observed the simple joy of the people and felt his heart warm. "This is what I was looking for," he thought, "the bread of the soul." During the celebration, Mateos climbed onto a chair and, encouraged by Clara, gave a short speech. "One day, I went hungry here. Today, I help feed other people. This only happened because someone saw me when no one else did." Applause echoed, and tears filled Lucas's eyes. After the event, Lucas took Mateos for a walk to a nearby square. The boy was carrying a backpack with new notebooks. "Do you know what this is?" Lucas asked. "Your registration card. You're going back to school." The boy was silent for a few seconds before hugging him tightly. "But what about work?" he asked, still surprised. "Work will have to wait," Lucas replied.
Bread feeds the body, but education feeds the future. Matthias wept softly, holding the paper as if it were a treasure. Back at the bakery, Roberto was waiting for them. "Mr. Lucas, I wanted to thank you. This place taught me more than any book. Today I serve bread, but what I give is forgiveness." Lucas shook his hand and replied, "You learned the hardest lesson, to change from the inside out." In the following days, the project received awards and recognition, but Lucas avoided the spotlight. He always said, "The merit belongs to the bread, not the baker." And every time someone mentioned the name Matthias, his gaze softened. It was a living reminder that love and compassion could still transform the world. That night, before going to sleep, Lucas looked at the illuminated bakery sign through his office window. The reflection of the name Daily Bread flickered on the wall. He smiled. The hunger that once wounded me was the same hunger that made me share.
And so, with a light heart and a peaceful spirit, she fell asleep. For the first time, she didn't dream of the past. She dreamed of tomorrow. 5 years had passed since that day at the bakery. The world seemed different. Or perhaps it was just the perspective of someone who had learned to see. The Daily Bread initiative was now present in dozens of cities. Charitable bakeries, maintained by donations and volunteer work, fed thousands of people daily. Lucas walked through the streets of a simple neighborhood, without bodyguards, without a tie, wearing only the same worn-out cap that had accompanied him from the beginning. He liked to observe daily life without being noticed. It was there, among humble smiles and familiar aromas, that he felt richest. Matthias, now 15 years old, studied and worked part-time on the project. Intelligent and kind, he had become a kind of spokesman for the movement. "The bread that we share doesn't run out, it multiplies," he would say in talks, with the radiance of someone who had lived to prove it. Baker Roberto had become one of the network's main instructors. He taught homeless people the trade, helping them to start over. "He who kneads bread with faith also kneads his own destiny," he always repeated. His former arrogance had transformed into living humility. One morning, Lucas received a letter with no return address. The envelope was simple, with the project logo hand-drawn on it. Inside, there was only a sheet of paper with childlike handwriting. "Mr. Lucas, I ate the first bread of my life today. It was warm. Thank you for reminding me that good people still exist. An anonymous friend." Lucas read the letter several times, and each reading seemed heavier and more beautiful. He sat at a table in the central bakery and observed the activity. Different people, rich, poor, young, old, shared the same tables, laughed together, shared the same bread. It was a portrait of the dream he had dared to believe in. That afternoon, Matthias rushed in carrying a new poster. "Look what I made," he said excitedly. The poster bore a simple phrase, "Here, the bread belongs to everyone. So does the love." Lucas smiled, moved. "You surpassed the master, boy." Matthias replied, "You are the master who taught us to believe." The sun began to set, and the golden sign of the bakery reflected the orange light on the glass. The same glass that years ago separated a hungry boy from the bread he dreamed of. Now it was a mirror of a world transformed by kindness. Before calling it a day, Lucas left a message on the wall written in his own handwriting. "As long as there is hunger, there will be bread. As long as there is pain, there will be hands. As long as there is love, there will be a reason to start again."
And that night, when the last loaf of bread came out of the oven, the warm aroma spread through the streets, reminding everyone that hunger can be overcome as long as the heart never closes. The hungry boy had become a man who fed the world, and the world at last had learned to share. That story is over, but its message never ends.
How many times have you also seen someone get rejected and remain silent? Here, each story is a reminder that the world only changes when we decide to look at it differently. So if this story touched you, if it ignited something within you, sign up now, because the next video might be exactly the spark your heart has been waiting for.